Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? It is 1:18 a.m. and I was just listening to my audiobook. I think it's book 10, the Misfortune series. Hook, Line, and Blinker. I'm almost done with it. I have less than 40, well, I have like 2 hours, but I listened to it so fast at 3 times speed that I have like 40 minutes left of it. Less than 40 minutes of it. And then I don't know what I'm going to listen to. I have a couple cozy Christmas mysteries that I might listen to. I might listen to the next one in this Misfortune series. I'm not really sure. I haven't decided. I think I might listen to the next one in the Misfortune series and then start doing Christmas books for the last, 2 weeks of Christmas, or the 12 days of Christmas, or whatever, which starts on, the 12 days down to Christmas starts tomorrow, actually, so, I think. Well, if you count, like, Christmas Eve, because I was figuring it out for my review channel, because I'm going to do, like, the 12 days of Christmas giveaways over there. So, which I haven't even thought about. Today was like the most boring day. I literally did nothing today. And it was really nice, actually. I like slept, well, when I came home from vlogging, I went back to bed and we didn't do, either one of us didn't do anything today. We just laid around. Alex is rewatching Schitt's Creek. And then he was watching The Crown. And he watched like the entire last season, or this season of The Crown. And then he went back to Schitt's Creek again after that. And he was just laying around with the pups all day long. And I went back to bed when I came home and I slept. And then I got up and just did a bunch of random stuff. Just talked to people on the phone forever, it seemed like. And then, what else did I do? Oh my lord, I had all these cameos. So, I was doing these cameos. I still have quite a few to do. I kind of like break them down into like the day that they're due. Because some days I have like 8, 9 to do. And I try to like make them special. So I try to break them up throughout the day. I love doing those. Those are so much fun. That was kind of like an unexpected thing that I didn't... Like, when I started that, it's not what I thought it would be. I don't know really what I thought it would be. Well, I didn't think that I would get really that many cameo requests, honestly. But, I don't know. I just have such a fun time doing it. And people tell me, like, all little, like, things. They'll be like, oh, my sister and I watch your videos, or we text each other about your videos, and then they'll say, like, you know, she has a cat named Tiger, and, you know, like, she loves coffee from Starbucks. I mean, it's just little funny stuff that people tell me, and I love it. And, so yeah, I did that, and then I was driving around, and I was listening to my audiobook for a little bit. That's when I talked to Tanya for, like, ever. And, she had to work all day today. She was super tired. And, so I like went home, and that was at like 5:30. It gets so dark anymore. I mean, obviously, like, we're in the middle, you know, coming in the middle, the beginning of winter, which I guess officially is what, December 21st, and the winter solstice. And I just was so blah this like whole weekend. I don't know what it is. And I finished the second episode of, well, I heated up some leftovers, and Alex was having some leftover pizza. We were gonna get pizza. I was like, I am not in the mood for pizza. Like, we've had pizza so much lately, it seems like. So I watched the end of the second, I had like half of the second episode of Murder on Middle Beach. And then I watched the third episode. And so I only have the finale left. And I was going to watch it too, and then I was like, I kind of want to save it, and I was kind of drifting off, honestly. I have such a hard time, like, on weekends. Like, when I talk to friends of mine and I'm like, so what'd you do this weekend? They're like, nothing. Like, I literally just, like, slept all day Saturday and Sunday and then, you know, like, watch Netflix and stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I would watch, like, a show or a movie and then I'd fall asleep for a couple hours. Like, I never allow myself to do that. And so today, I just was like, I had all these videos I wanted to make and I was just like, you know what? You're going to take the day off and you're just going to relax today and just learn to be present and just listen to your, I don't know why it's so hard for me. I'm always just like, I have all these things I want to do, you know? And I was like, you're just going to listen to your audiobook and then first of all, it does not feel like a Saturday, okay? It really feels like a Sunday today or a Monday. And then it was like rainy and dreary all day in Indianapolis today. So I felt like every step I took me 5. Do you know what I mean? Like one of those days. Like I wasn't sad or down or anything. It just seemed like so kind of like I was living in a Dickens novel or something today. Like a modern Dickens novel. It was just so dark and dreary outside. And then, so I watched those episodes. Man, that documentary, like, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but, like, I am so bad wanting to talk about that documentary because it is, whew. Well, first of all, okay, this kid's relationship with his mom reminds me a lot of my relationship with my mom. And, especially because she's sober and she's in recovery. It's really, and he abused substances when he was younger. And so, and her name, you know, was Barbara, and my mom's name was Barbara, and it's hard to, I don't know, like, and I know that that's, like, nothing, but I'm just, like, watching it, and I was like, there's a lot of similarities. Like, even in some ways, she kind of, like, there's this one thing they show where she's, like, getting this food, and I don't know if it's at, like, one of these gifting tables or what she's doing, but, like, she turns, like, they're recording it, and she turns, and she's, like, she kind of does this little dance kind of thing while she's, like, scooping food onto a plate. It totally, like, that 3 seconds of video clip, like, I mean, it's so weird when I see, they show it, because they showed at the beginning of, like, every episode, that part, and so, like, whenever and they've shown it a couple times throughout the documentary, too, like, whenever I see that clip, like, that reminds me of my mom so much. It just kind of, like, you know that Rolling Stone song, The Girl with the Faraway Look in Her Eyes? Like, that song, like, always reminds me of my mom, kind of. And, just those words. But, like, she always kind of has this, Barb Hamburg in the documentary always kind of has this, like, faraway look in her eyes. And, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for this. I mean, he's not even a kid, really, because by the time that, so she dies in 2010. And he's 18, so he's 28 now. He films that out throughout different ages. Like, he's 25 at one point. I have water and Diet Coke, you guys, and this water tastes so good. He's like 25 at one point. And then at another point, he's like, it goes back and forth between all these different years. Like, one year, it's like 3 years after the murder. Okay, so he was 18 when his mom was murdered. His aunt found his mom, but she was there. Okay, so his aunt picked up his sister from school because his sister was like a junior or something in high school, and she didn't want to be at school, and she said, like, her mom dropped her off that morning at school and she didn't want to be there. So, like, at 10 o'clock she started calling her mom, but her mom didn't answer, so she called her aunt to have her aunt come pick her up. What is going on here? Okay. So her aunt picked her up from school, and they went back to the house. And that's how they found his mom. They don't really say where he was at that time. Like, they never really say that. I don't know where he was. Like, if he was in college, or I have no clue where he was at that point. But the whole first episode is really focused on, like, Dad did it. And him being kind of like, you can tell he's kind of convinced that dad did it. It's interesting because it like is kind of really about the progression of this case. Like, he's trying to solve the case. Well, first of all, can you imagine trying to solve your own mother's murder case? Like, I can't even imagine, right? And then documenting the whole thing. And it's interesting because there's this one part when he logs into her Facebook, and he hasn't logged into it since she's passed away, and it's like years later when he does that. And there's all these unread messages and stuff, and he's like, the police didn't even see this. And it's so weird because he's like, well, not weird, but he's interesting. He says, this is really hard for me to do, to log in like as my mother. And he's reading these messages, and he's reading messages between the two of them, like messages she sent to him. And when I say it's like weird or interesting, like when you talk about grieving, which I love that the mother, like his grandmother, his maternal grandmother, so Barb Hamburger's mom, he says something to her. He interviews her in the third episode. I mean, he interviews her a lot, but he interviews her in the third episode, and he says something, and she says, don't you ever let anybody tell you how to grieve. Like, you grieve how you want to grieve. And, you know, I think that's so important. It's like, and she's like, grieving is private. And she was like, you can't tell anybody how to grieve. And she kind of breaks down, and she's like, you know, I've lost my daughter, and she'll never be back, and you've lost your mom. And it's really this powerful moment, because I think it's so true, you know? And this documentary, for being like, well, it must have started off as like a classroom assignment, because everybody refers to it as like him getting a good grade on it. And then it blew up into this thing that ended up being bought by maybe like HBO Max or something like that, because it is an HBO documentary. It's just, I think it's really well done. He clips in like, he shows like scenes of like the town and stuff, Madison, Connecticut, but then he like puts the sound over it that's like these movie strips from like the 60s, you know, like Connecticut is a small state, and it's like, it's really well done how he does it. And he's not really afraid to take risks. Like, he goes like into the police department, and he like records them without them knowing it. And he like wears like a wire, like when he goes to like meet with his dad. That's like in the first episode. So then the second episode is about these gifting tables, which I talked about last night. Like, I had no clue about these gifting tables. And they go into explaining it more in the third one too. But like, they get in a lot of trouble for these gifting tables. And I mean, they're making like millions of dollars off of this. And it's interesting when you're listening to it, because like, they're all involved in the gifting tables, like all these women. Like, his mom is like, she's a bigwig in like the gifting tables. And she started because of her Aunt Jill, who is married to, or his Aunt Jill. Is it her Aunt Jill or his Aunt Jill? That's married, she married into the family. And she's the one that starts these gifting tables. She ends up getting in a lot of trouble for it later and going to prison. That's at the end of the third episode. And then this other woman, who I don't even know who she really is, but Donna somebody. She's like a niece or something in the family. But they all start doing this gifting tables thing, which is just like, I don't even know that I really truly understand it. But they're talking about like mass amounts of money. So then it gets into this whole thing about his mom being sober and in recovery. And there's a lot about that I'm just kind of interested, to be honest with you, in how they approach all of that. And it's kind of like, if you're sober, you know, and if you're not, then it wouldn't matter to you anyway. I think I said that yesterday. But it's just interesting to me how that all plays into it and the way that they approach it in the documentary. But I do like that they talk about like family addiction, and that like the grandma talks about it a lot, and she's like, the 3 daughters got it, which is interesting because the one aunt, Conway, that's in it, like the grandma basically says that she's an alcoholic, but she doesn't ever really address being sober. She kind of does, but then not really. And okay, so then what's crazy is if you watch the whole first episode is basically about the dad. And then the dad at the end of the first episode is basically saying that your Aunt Jill did it. Like these gifting tables. Like nobody wanted to look into these gifting tables. You need to look into these gifting tables. That's like right at the very end of the first episode. So then you're like, well, what's about these gifting tables? So you go into the second episode and it's mostly about the gifting tables, right? And you're like, well, there was kind of like some dissension like within these gifting tables, and then she and her Aunt Jill split. Like they were like not happy with each other and went their separate ways, and that was like literally like a month before she was murdered. And then, but I don't think her Aunt Jill had anything to do with it. Like his dad kind of implies that, but I don't think that's the case. Do I think that somebody could have murdered her because she had tons of money at her house? Now that, I think, could be a possibility, because they were talking about huge sums of cash that they had on them. So, which is always interesting to me. I've had a few friends in my life that keep quite a bit of cash at their house, and it'll always be like in a weird place, like not in a safe, but like in a freezer or something. And don't be coming to my house knocking on our door. We don't have cash like that. We just don't. I wish I had that kind of cash, but if I did, I'd keep it in the bank. But what's crazy to me is my friends that are like that, they'll always like tell you too, you know, like even their closest friends, they'll be like, yeah, well, we keep like 20,000 in the freezer. And I'm like, what? And they're like, well, you never know what's gonna happen. In my 48 years, thankfully, I can't think of anything that has happened that I needed $20,000 in cash from the freezer overnight. You know what I mean? Like, thankfully, I guess. But anyway, but they tell people, like that's how, like Alex and I always talk on the way home, and I'll be like, did they just tell us that they had $20,000 in their freezer? And he's like, yeah, isn't that crazy? And I'm like, how would you know if you were telling the wrong person or not? You know what I mean? It's like, okay. So, it's so hot in this car. Before I get any more in this documentary, can I just tell you that I was so, like, our house is so dry. I need to, like, set up the humidifier. And so, today, I kept on, like, saying to Alex, because, you know, of course, he's, like, upstairs watching Schitt's Creek in bed. Is it focusing? Okay. And I'm downstairs in the chair. And so, he's, like, coming to the edge, and we're shouting over at each other, you know. And then he would come downstairs and get food and take the dogs out. The dogs always want to be in the bed. Whoever's in bed is where the dogs want to be. So, I said, do you think it's dry in here? And he's like, we both are kind of like lotion fiends. I mean, we use so much lotion, like all over, head to toe. And we usually use a Vino lotion because I swear by it. I love the Sol de Janeiro Coco Cabana cream, but I usually only put that on like if I'm going out somewhere like special, because I don't want to like go through it so much, you know. And I have the Bum Bum cream, which somebody told me is called Boom Boom cream. So I guess it's called Boom Boom cream. But I don't like that as well as the Coco Cabana cream. I probably wouldn't buy the Boom Boom cream again. I just don't like the smell as much. But I do like it in the hand sanitizer. So anyway, I said, do you think it's dry in here? And he like came out, he was like standing like by the door letting the dogs out. And he was like, I mean, it's hot. Like, the thing is, it was like in the like upper 50s and low 60s this weekend. So we had like, we turned the heat down and then we turned it back up. And I think when we turned it back up, because it's like 36 degrees now. So today it was cold outside. I think when we turned the heat back up, it just like dried out the house or something. So I was like, tonight, I lay down after I watched this documentary for like 2 hours. I took the nice, oh my God, it was such a beautiful nap. Such a beautiful nap. It was so nice. And so I got up, and I love like waking up to the sound of Schitt's Creek. I don't know why, you know, just with my husband and the dogs, and it just is so cozy, you Anyway, so I got up and I was like, I'm gonna take a shower. Like, I'm gonna take like a long shower and lotion and everything. I said, maybe that'll make me feel a little bit better. So I did, and you guys, I feel like it dried my skin out more. Like, I put so much lotion on. I mean, my skin feels really soft right now, but like, I feel like it dried me out even more. Isn't that the weirdest thing? Yeah, like my face feels like really soft right now. It's like, do you know what is so weird though is, like, I love body lotion, like putting it all over, like I put it on, you know, head to toe. But I cannot use, you guys, like hand lotion. You know how like a lot of like women keep like hand lotion in their purses and whatever. Like Tanya always is like, do you have hand lotion? I'm like, no, you know I don't keep hand lotion. Like, I have to have my hands be kind of like dry a little bit. Like, not like dry, like cracking dry, but like I can't have them greasy or oily. And so I'm like really weird about lotion. And that's why like the Aveeno lotion for me is like the only, like, besides that Coco Cabana, is like the only lotion that I can use. Anyway, okay, back to the documentary. So I was just saying that I took this like really like 15-minute shower, maybe longer. I used my Coco Cabana shampoo and conditioner. I actually used just the Irish Spring body wash tonight, because sometimes it just makes me, I think it smells so good. And we use Dial soap. I love that, just white Dial soap. It's cheap too. And then, yeah, I use the Sol de Janeiro shampoo and conditioner, and the Dial soap, and then the Irish Spring, just the regular green bottle shower gel, and then I put on the Aveeno lotion, and I feel like I just like instantly, I could like even feel the heat coming from the register in our bathroom, which is good. That all changed a couple years ago because we had to get a new furnace, and before we got a new furnace, like, it was so cold in our bathroom, like you would get out of the shower and you'd be like you couldn't even stand there. It was so cold. And so we got a new furnace a couple years ago, and now the bathroom gets real toasty warm. But there's only one vent in there, and then we have like the sunlight in the bathroom, and then we have this huge walk-in like closet, not really walk-in because we have like stuff in there stored, but it's this closet. It's probably like 5 feet deep and 10 feet across. That's over the garage. So if it's cold, like, you feel like the cold from the garage coming into the, anyway. So, yeah, so back to the documentary. So then at the end of the second one, when they're done talking about these gifting tables, this Aunt Conway, like, somebody tweeted me and said that they were like side-eyeing her the whole time, which was interesting. I'll tell you why in a second. You don't really know like who could have done it, right? Because like at the very beginning of like the first episode, like he asks his Aunt Conway something, which I love that name. I don't know why, I think that's such a cool name. But he asks his Aunt Conway something, and I think that might be like a different like maiden name or something, or maybe it's her, I don't know, maybe it's her name that she got married. I don't know how it is, but anyway. But he says, like, who do you think did it? And she's like, it could have been anyone. It could be anybody that you're talking to. And then it kind of like goes to like the credits, which is true. It could be anybody, you know? So what's weird is, like, he asks his Aunt Jill, she's like the gifting table lady, and he's like, did you have anything to do with killing my mother? Did you have anything to do with my mother's death? Like, he asks them point blank on video, and she goes, she's like, no. She's like, it wouldn't have been possible. And then she goes into explaining why it wouldn't be possible. She's like, I mean, I was in a car. Like, we were driving down there that morning. We got in a car at 4:30, which was so weird to me, because, like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but like, if somebody asked me something, I mean, I don't know that the first thing I would be thinking about, somebody that I absolutely loved, would be to laugh. Like, she laughs, and then he asks his sister straight up, who, that's the whole third episode, which that's crazy, and his sister is like, what? Like, no, it's not possible. That I was at school, I was like in the nurse's, you know, office. So she and the aunt both give like alibis real quick and laugh and act like that's the most ridiculous question in the world. His Aunt Conway, she's like, she looks at him, like he asks her, and she doesn't say no, she doesn't say yes. She says, I protected her my entire life. I loved her with every bit of my being. She was like, and then she was like, no, I would never have hurt her. But get this, are you ready? After she says this, right? But before this, she tells him that she had, when she was in the, so there's this whole part where his mom and dad basically get Conway's son because she's like so out of her mind in active addiction that she leaves. And so, and then she gets evicted from her house. So her son comes to live with Madison, who's the director of the documentary, his parents, and they basically kind of like adopt him, but not really. So she's pissed about it, right? Like years later, she's pissed. So she takes out all the money in her IRA, and she's basically talking to anybody that she can to hire a hit out on her sister and her husband and the kids. Meaning the kid that's taking care, doing the documentary, his mom and dad and his sister. Like his aunt was going to do a hit on him. You guys, it gets so weird. Like it's just, and she just acts like it's just not that big of a deal. And she's like, but I loved her. And then when we came back, it was like, and she said she goes, I got rolled. She goes, I woke up in a hotel room naked with all my money was gone. I got rolled. And I'm like, you were going to kill your sister. Like, not only that, but like, and her husband and 2 kids. Like, what is going on here? Because he says something about people snapping, and she's like, yeah, I snapped. So anyway, then the whole 3rd episode is really about his sister, who, I don't really know how old she was when her mom died. Probably 16 maybe. Gorgeous girl. And like after her mom died and she graduated from high school, she like left the country, and she went to like every country in South America. She talks about it. She's like, I went to Peru and Chile and Venezuela, and now she lives in Argentina. And but you know, I had a friend of mine who, her mother, it's a very dear friend of mine, whose mother took her life. And the way that she and her brother dealt with it was very different. You know, like, she was very settled for a while, and he kind of ran. And then, because the aunt says, well, I think she just wanted, the aunt says that she thinks the daughter did it. Like, she straight up calls out her niece and says her niece is the murderer, right? She's like, and then she says, I can't even look at her because she looks just like your mom in the face, which she looks nothing like her mom in the face to me, but whatever. Maybe I don't know these people that well. Obviously, I'm just watching a documentary. Do you see how riled I get by these documentaries? So anyway, my friend, well, she says, okay, she says in the documentary, she says, I think she just wanted the life insurance money or something. Well, my friend and her brother each got quite a bit of money. And she stayed and finished college, whereas her brother kind of like ran. And then her brother settled down, and then she kind of ran a little bit and did a lot of traveling and stuff. And now they're both kind of settled down at this point. But I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, I was so numb when my mom passed away, and my mom didn't pass away in some tragic way, but I still lost my mom, you know? And I think like in that moment, like, I think also depending on like when it happens to you, you know, like he was 18 when it happened, she was 16, you know, like I know that that's not the same as like me being 35, right? Going on to be 36, but like at the same time, it's like, I had just left my 13-year career. I just gotten out of a relationship that I was in for almost 7 years, 6.5 years. It was like all these changes were occurring for me. And I really do believe I was in this transition period. And I was so numb you know? Like, do I think that I might have responded better, like, had I been in, like, a really healthy relationship and a 9-to-5 job that I loved? Yeah, I think I probably would have. I didn't feel like I really had any ground underneath my feet anyway. I didn't feel very stable. It stopped. So, like, I totally relate to that running away mentality. And she says something in there that's really profound. She says, they're like sitting in this abandoned house in the water. It's gorgeous wherever they are. It's like at the end of this like lake area. And she says, you know, she said, people deal with things in different ways. And she's like, I've done a lot of work on myself. Well, she doesn't have good things to say about her dad at all. She's like, he's very controlling, and she had a lot of mental health issues. And so she seems pretty good today, honestly, for like, I mean, I don't know that the mental health stuff she was hospitalized for, and then her mom dies just like 2 years after that. There's something weird about the mom and dad. I can't figure out what it is. There's something there, and I don't know. Like the dad, oh, this is the part I forgot. So the dad owed the mom like $150,000 or $130,000 in back alimony that he had never paid, and then he owed something like $350,000 in child support, which he hasn't paid to this day, which is like a really big deal, you know? I mean, that's a lot of money. Indiana is a deadbeat dad state. Like in Indiana, if that happened, he would have to pay that money. Like this is like, Indiana is really hardcore about that stuff. Like I don't know where other people live watching this, but I'm telling you, in Indiana, that's like no joke. That conversation wouldn't even come up in casual passing in Indiana, because people would be like, that's a really big deal that you're not paying child support. Like, that is really, really frowned upon. And rightfully so. That's just my 2 cents on that one. I can remember my mom and I talking about that later when I was older, about like child support and alimony and stuff like that. And she was like, because she had, you know, heard a lot of friends that had just gone through hell with it, where they had to hire attorneys and whatever, you know. And my mom was like, your dad never missed a payment, not once. And he was always early getting it to me. She was like, he never once missed a payment. I think it says a lot. I really do. I think it says a lot about, I don't know, the sad thing is this, right? Like, is the single parents, as tough as it is, are going to get by eventually. I mean, what are they going to do? They have to raise their kids, so they'll get assistance somehow, you know? And I mean, no matter how difficult it is, I know there's probably single parents out there right now that are watching this that don't get assistance from their exes or their children's fathers, you know, or mothers, I guess. But the reality is this, is that, I mean, like, most of the people that I know, they get by somehow. They just, you know, they do. They cut corners and they live in smaller places and whatever. But the sad thing is that it really just screws that relationship up for the kids with those fathers down the road, or mothers. I've known some mothers that were in the same situation, and the kids are really the ones that pay for it. Even if, you know, even if it doesn't affect that relationship, it's like their level of dependability in relationships and stuff like that, like, is later. Like, I would think, you know, like, I don't know. I don't know. It just makes me sad. So anyway, the whole third episode of the documentary, it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be, you guys. When I started it, I was like, this thing is going to be so amateurish. This kid is just throwing this thing together. I'm not impressed. Oh, no. No. It is really, really well done. It is, and it's scary to watch, too. The day before she got murdered, one of her recovery friends and her were at her house. Like, they interview this woman. They don't show her face and stuff. They say anonymous, which I love that they do that. Because that's exactly how they're supposed to do it. And that just, I don't know, it just... There was a lot of, like... It's interesting to me how they do the recovery piece, but at the same time, there was a lot of respect for it. But there were some things that I was kind of like, maybe they don't know better, you know, things like that. There's something I want to say so bad, but I'm just like, anyway, I'm just not going to. But, in regards to the documentary, anyway, it's nothing bad. It's like a good thing. But like, it's so funny because I'm like sitting there watching it and I was like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. Like, recognition, you know, of something they talk about in there. And you really realize being sober that we're all very connected, you know, across different programs and states and whatever. And I just think that that's cool, you know. I think that that connectivity between you know, it's like this. So I did this cameo today for somebody, and oh, maybe I shouldn't say. Apparently I said something in a vlog. I didn't even say anything about the person. It wasn't like the wedding one, because she reached out to me. I didn't even say anything about the person, but somebody guessed that they were getting a cameo from me, so then I had to make it even more secretive, so I probably shouldn't say that. But you know, there's just a connectivity between people that are in recovery. I mean, we're family to some degree, you know? Like, we get it. We've been there. And it doesn't matter if you've had one day or 50 years, you know? You get it. There's a connectivity. There's a connection there that you have with people that are sober. You know, I could sit down in an airport or next to somebody at a hotel or, you know, at the grocery store and pick up on something, right? Like a keychain from some programs, or, you know, just like somebody having a t-shirt on, or somebody say something, you know, that's like, oh, I remember, this is so funny. So a friend of mine, she and I were in, God, this is years ago. We were in Anderson. This is before they have live dealers now, but this was back in the day when they didn't have live dealers. And she and I would go up there and we would play blackjack every once in a while. And so we were sitting there, and it was she and I, and there were like 3 guys on the other side of us, and they were talking program, and she wasn't listening. I was like totally listening to everything they said, and like they were doing it, but kind of like in code. I don't even really know how to explain it. I'm trying to think of like something that they would have said. Like they said something like, well, she goes to Tuesday night, or she, like, or he, like, he just had 18 months, or something like that. It was like stuff that you, like, you wouldn't, like, outside of the norm of being sober, like, those phrases probably wouldn't mean anything, you know? So we're sitting there, and then I was like, I had never met these guys before or seen them. They were probably 25, 26. But like, I knew their roommate. So it was 3 of them, and I knew their roommate from going to meetings. And they said his name, and when they said his name, I was like, okay, this has to be. And I turned to my friend and I said, their program. And she goes, what? And I go, their program. And she goes, no, they're not. They're drinking. And they were not drinking. They were drinking like Diet Cokes. I go, they're drinking Diet Cokes. And she's like, do you really think they're program? And I said, yeah. And she, my friend's older, okay? And she just does not care and has been sober forever. And she looks over and she goes, are you boys friends of Bill W? I was like, oh my God. So they were like, yeah, how did you know? And she was like, he could hear your conversation. She goes, you obviously were saying program stuff. So here it was, a group of us. It was just us at this table, right? And then I ended up saying, like, I think you guys live, because I had heard my friend talk about his roommates, and I was like, I think you live with so-and-so. And they're like, how do you know him? And I was like, he's a good friend of mine from like such and such meeting or whatever. And they were like, oh my God, that is so wild. See, it's a small world. It really is a small world, and it's so fantastic. Like, I'm laughing at that story, but it almost kind of makes me cry, you know, like, I don't know why I got so emotional just all of a sudden. It's just like, the miracle of sobriety is just like unbelievable. God, that was so weird. I don't know why I got so emotional all of a sudden. It's just like that connection of seeing somebody and being like, wow, like, we've both lived it, you know? And there's room for tons of you out there if you guys want to come in and get sober. It's just like, sobriety is such a fantastic life. I love it, I love it, I love it. So anyway, then the 3rd episode of this documentary is him talking to his sister about what happened that day and all this kind of stuff, and how she ran away to live out of the country afterwards, which is crazy to me that like right at 18, she left like after she graduated and never came back, but she hasn't been back yet. It's been like 6 years. I just think that's so weird. Like, I don't know, like, I mean, I know she went backpacking through all these countries, but I think it sounds exciting. I think it sounds desirable, but I don't know. If I was going to do it though, I wouldn't. I used to think I wanted to backpack through Europe. I don't think I'd backpack through Europe. I would backpack through South America, like she did. Actually, do you guys want to know something weird? Here, I never ask you. You're like, yeah. Somebody actually in the comment sections was like, does anybody else nod when Peter asks them questions? This was just in the last 24 hours somebody said this. And they were like, everybody was like, there was like 3 comments and they were like, yeah, I do. But my ex and I used to, well, my very first boyfriend, he and I traveled a lot with my dad and my stepmom. My last ex and I, we didn't travel a lot with my dad and my stepmom. My stepmom had a knee injury as a result of playing tennis. She played competitive tennis, and so they didn't travel as much after that. So, but my first boyfriend and I, we traveled like all the time. Like 3 times a year we would go on like some really massive trip with my dad and my stepmom. And one trip that we took, God, it was such a great trip. We went to Grand Cayman. I've talked a lot about it on here before, but it was actually before like these really bad hurricanes hit, because we stayed at like the very end. We were like at the Marriott or the Hilton or something. I don't know. Supposedly it has no beach anymore. If I ever go back, I want to stay, which I hope to someday. I would love to take Alex there. It is beautiful. Grand Cayman 7 Mile Beach is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I literally would walk down the beach and 20 feet out, dolphins would be just like swimming by. You guys, it's crystal clear. It is one of the most magical places you have ever seen in your entire life. I also want to go to Turks and Caicos, really, really bad. And I also want to go to Anguilla. Those are like my big places. So, well, and I really want to go to, shoot, the Maldives. But these places, are shorter flights and I can handle it. I really want to go to Turks and Caicos bad. So I heard it was absolutely beautiful. But anyway, we stayed there, and if I went back, I would stay at I would save my money so that I could stay at like the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons, because apparently they're just like unbelievable right there on the beach. But they had like reefs out there that you could like snorkel in. I mean, you guys, it was one of the most magical, unbelievable places I had ever been. Well, so we had like, we would lay out on the beach, and there would be like these hotel waitresses that would come out every single day. And I can remember at that time, this is so trashy, but I was smoking these cigarettes called Newport Ice Lights. If anybody out there remembers these, let me know. Newport Ice and Newport Ice Lights. Okay, they were super strong. They ended up getting banned in the United States because they were so strong, but they were so fine. They were probably like the best menthol I've ever smoked in my entire life. But anyway, so I can remember I was laying out. Y'all know I love to lay out, and I love to get like tan and stuff, you know. So I'm laying out. My ex loved to lay out too. We're out there in some chairs ordering Diet Cokes or whatever, and we got to talking to this waitress that was like helping us, and she was super friendly. And I can't remember where she was from. She was from like the East Coast somewhere, like Connecticut or New Hampshire or Vermont or something like that. She had grown up there. And because she asked me the reason about the cigarettes, which she was like, can I have a couple of those cigarettes? She's like, I have not seen those. And she was like, I don't think we can get them down here. And I was like, yeah, sure, take a couple of them. So I ended up giving her like a whole pack because I had brought like a carton down. We had seen her, like we saw her through the whole week. So anyway, we ended up talking. Now at the time that he and I started dating, so I started dating him right before, I would have started dating him when I got sober when I was 22 and a half. So the following October, so I was 23 and a half when I started dating him. So this would have been spring going into right before I was 24. And I was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like I had applied to these master's programs and stuff, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, right? I'd applied to the social work program. And so anyway, we were talking to this girl, and somehow we found out that like she and like a group of like 6 or 7 other people, like they traveled together, and what they would do is they wanted to like experience life on like every island in the Caribbean. And so they had decided that they were going to take like 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years or something, and then they would go and they would work, like she said they all lived in an apartment together on the island. And so like a couple of them worked at the Marriott, a couple of them worked at like someplace else, and then like once they had saved their money enough, they would move on to the next island. And they had done that at like 3 or 4 different islands so far. And she was like, it's fantastic, and we get to like experience the Caribbean, and we've met so many people. And she's like, we've met so many people from around the world, because so many like Europeans and Australians and stuff come to the Caribbean, right? It's not just like, you know, people from the Caribbean are Americans, obviously. And I can remember for the longest time that was kind of my dream. I was like, that would be so much fun to just like island top. I remember I said that to my dad, and he goes, why don't you do it then? Because he knew I wouldn't. He was like, yeah, why don't you go do it? I'm like, no. See, because I get scared of having to like make big changes like that in my life. So I don't do that kind of stuff. I really am like a creature of comfort. But now with the Florida thing, I'm ready to get a place in Florida. I would go back and forth, oh my God, every other week. I actually think that once we get a place down there, which we're closer to doing that than I mean, we've got to go down there and we've got to look at some different places. So we're probably got, before we actually purchase a place, I don't know, probably, I'd like to purchase someplace by next year, by like a year from now, and which means that we have, we need to go down there and look a couple more times. I don't know. But this is what I was going to say. I actually think that once I get a place, my mother-in-law, by the way, has informed us that she said this standing in our kitchen. She said, she looked at me and she said, now you know that when you move to Florida, I'm coming and I'm moving in with you. And I said, what? She goes, yeah. She was like, because Fufu and Jesse will have kids, and Carlos and Liliana have kids, but you two are the only ones that don't have kids. I said, okay. She's like, you wouldn't mind? I said, no. I said, you could come and live with us now if our basement was finished. And, you know, she's like so independent and does her own thing. She would be so easy to have live with us. I don't like, that doesn't bother me at all. I actually would probably enjoy it. If I had my own area to film, like that's the only thing. Like, I feel like I'm constantly like in Alex's way when I'm filming and stuff. But if I had like a guest bedroom or the basement where I could film, then like that wouldn't matter to me at all, you know? The condo is small. I mean, our condo is really, really small. Even if the basement was finished, it would still be small to have somebody live in the condo. But a place in Florida, I mean, we want to get like a 3-bedroom place anyway, so that would be completely fine. Plus, she's not at the age yet where she wants to, like, you know, just do that. I mean, she travels so much. She loves to travel, and she loves to be with the grandkids and stuff, with Carlitos and Sebastian. So I think she's talking about when she's older. I never thought I would say that, you know, like I never thought like when I actually got into like a serious relationship or like, well, first of all, for much of my life, I thought my mother would be that mother-in-law. I thought she would be the mother that had to come live with us. I really, really did. And I can remember as much as I loved my mom being like, that's just going to be a lot, you know, like that is just going to be a lot of work. But I never thought it would be like the other mother, partly because I just never was, like, my relationship with those mothers was just not that great. And it was not because of me, and it wasn't because of us, like my partner and I. It was because, well, like I said, my first boyfriend, like he was still kind of his mom was really religious. He was kind of closeted with her. And then my last ex, she wasn't. She didn't really care. But she was like, she was so settled in the town that she lived in that, like, she would never have, like, we were close, but, like, I wouldn't have called her and, like, talked to her on the phone. I think indirectly she kind of felt maybe a little bit like he left the town because of me, which is true. You know, that I took him out of there when he was like, I could not wait to get out of this small town. He was like, get me out of here. And I felt bad about it at the time. I thought, you know, I said to him, you know, do you want to stay down here? We can still go back and forth, you know? But like Alex's mom and I, like, I'll call her up on the phone and stuff. So like that, like she and I are like close. Like how my Uncle Dave was with my mom, even though that was like brother and sister-in-law, you know? But like, or how like my grandma was with my dad. Or my Uncle Dave was with my grandma. You know, or how like Mike was with, it makes me sad, how Mike was with like my Aunt Kathy, you know? I mean, like they were really close. Like they would go out to lunch and, you know, talk about how to fix this and how to do that. And she and Mike are both really interested in finance. And so they would talk a lot about finance. And, you know, like that was the relationship I always wanted to have with a mother-in-law. And I have that. So, yeah, she would be so easy to live. I mean, well, hell, she'd be fun, I think, to live with, honestly. I better be careful saying this, because then she'll be like, she's not the type that would, like, call and be like, well, I was watching your vlog, and I thought that, you know, now would be a good time. She would just show up with all of her stuff and say, well, you said you wanted me to move in with you. I'd be like, whoa, wait a second. And like, I didn't say today. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't say today, but... And she's so funny. She'd be like, what do you mean you didn't say today? I thought you meant today. That's what she would say. She's so cute. I feel like the first time in my life, it's crazy, like, that I have just, like, this, you know, amazing family. Like, you know, everybody on Alex's side, it's just like it feels so close and connected, and I feel like such a part of that. And then like with Caroline and Mike and David, like I feel like a really part of that as well. And then with my dad and my stepmom, like we're in such a good place, you know, and it's like, I don't know, it's just pretty magical that I have this incredible family. My dad and my stepmom absolutely love Alex, you know. And I mean, how lucky are we and how blessed are we that we both have in-laws that just, I mean, really consider us part of the family, you know? Like, it's not like that's my daughter-in-law or that's my son-in-law, but that's like my son, is like how they treat us. My dad's pretty unbelievable with Alex. Like, I mean, he really, really like it. He and my stepmom both just adore Alex. But my dad and my stepmom are also very much like, you get the energy that you put out. Like, if you're real friendly and talkative, like my dad and my stepmom meet you there, if that makes sense. Like, if you're withdrawn and quiet and like kind of, like, my dad doesn't know what to do with that. Like, my dad is super gregarious. So, like, and teasing and sarcastic. And so, you know, like, you have to kind of grow up with that a little bit. Like, Alex can give it right back to him, and my dad, like, appreciates that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how that works because, I don't know, but I feel pretty blessed with all of them. You know, when my mom passed away, I really made sure that with all of my family members and close friends that there was like nothing left unsaid, because like I had that with my mom, you know, that like there was nothing that I hadn't said to her. And you know, so like that year that followed, I really worked hard on that, you know, like when I came out of the well, maybe not so much that following year, but when I got sober, and, you know, I really worked on telling people like how much they meant to me and specific things, you know, and if I had an issue with something, or, you know, if I didn't like how I had been treated somehow, like we would talk it out, you know, and I would ask questions, or if there were things I wanted to know, or, you know, whatever, with everybody in my life. And not that they always had to give it to me or they had to meet me where I was at, because sometimes people aren't there, you know what I mean? Where am I at on time? Oh my gosh. But by and large, I feel like that lake is so much bigger than I thought it was. Pretty. But by and large, I feel like I had a lot of closure with people. You know, we talk about closure as being this like really bad thing, right? Like, maybe not a bad thing, but like, you know, when you get out of a relationship, it's like I didn't have any closure, or I didn't get the closure that I needed, right? Instead of talking about like, I feel like I had a lot of closure with the relationships that were present in my life, so that if something would happen, then I feel like I had said what I needed to say, and I had heard what I needed to hear, and I was able to grieve appropriately and be able to move on, you know? And I learned that as a result of my mom's passing, to not let things go by without being said. You know, I think that was around the time that Tanya and I started telling each other all the time how much we love each other, you know? And I think that we didn't just assume it, you know? We told each other that, and I don't know, it's I don't know, the fact that I was able to say things to people that I felt like, you know, one day I may not have the opportunity to say to them was important. So I don't have a lot of relationships with people today where I feel like there are things that are unsaid. I feel like I've had, like, weirdly had closure, so now I can just enjoy the relationship. Do you know what I mean? And I don't let, and so it's kind of like, in a weird way, like, I made any amends I needed to make, I cleaned all that up and whatever, and that, like, now I just enjoy the relationship, and if any conflict or toxicity comes up, like I just deal with it right then, right? Like I don't let it like build up anymore. Like I just deal with it then. But I don't like really have any toxicity, you know, either. I can't think of anything where I get upset about something that happens within, you know, any of the family stuff. Because I think that we're also just like kind of like so honest with each other about, well, it stopped again. I was saying that I think that we're all just so honest with each other about what we need from each other, and, you know, if our feelings are hurt or something, we tell each other, and, you know what I mean? It's a lot easier that way. So I don't know who killed this woman, Barb Hamburg. And I don't know that I even have a clue yet who I think did it. This cheap Wet n Wild lip gloss is no Lunar Beauty. But I'll tell you, and I got it at Ulta, it's not bad. It's definitely stickier. It tastes cheaper. It tastes like cotton candy or bubble gum or something like that. I think bubble gum. It definitely is not like as nice as the Lunar Beauty. Somebody on my review channel said they ordered the Lunar Beauty and they didn't like it. So, but then I got a bunch of people that were like, "Oh, I love the Lunar Beauty." I think it just kind of depends on what you like, you know. Anyway, so I have no idea who did that case. I don't know if we'll ever know, or if it'll be a mystery forever. But it is a well-done documentary, and if you guys are looking for a true crime documentary, I would highly, highly recommend it. It's good. It was interesting, like I mentioned it on a video, and somebody said, I grew up in that area and I don't even know, I never even heard of this, or something like that, which I thought was crazy. But, you know, I think about it like with Indianapolis all the time, like, stuff could happen around here all the time and I wouldn't hear about it, you know? I follow like the news stations on my Twitter from around here, and it's like, I feel like every night they're like, there was a shooting, there was a murder on the near north side and whatever. Which, I mean, what they called it, like I'm on the north side right now, I'm on 116th Street, going into like going to Allisonville to go into Noblesville. But if you know Indianapolis or you live here, this is the north side, okay? Like 116th Street is it's not even the far north side anymore. I mean, like 166, 260th is like the north side, right? But a lot of people consider this, I don't know what, they consider this Fishers or Noblesville, and then like where I live, they consider it like the north side, and then like the near north side would be central Indiana, and I'm like, no, that's downtown. Like, that's not central Indiana. And then they're like, well, it's midtown, and I'm like, midtown? Like, we live in Indianapolis, it's like 10 city blocks, okay? It's not that big. Like, seriously, I don't know what you're talking about. And what's so funny is there's this area called Broad Ripple, and it's where my mom went to high school. She went to Broad Ripple High School. My mom actually grew up in a house on Central at 52nd and Central, if you want to see it. If you go there, there's a sidewalk that goes like this. If you live in Indianapolis, you can go see the house that my mom grew up in. I actually drove by it once for a video. But anyway, that area that she grew up in is now called South Broad Ripple, but they don't call it South Broad Ripple. It's got a lot of cute restaurants and a lot of cute little stores and stuff now. Back in the day, that was like not like the best area of town, but now, you know what they call that? They call it Sobro. South Broad Ripple. I don't think there's a Nobro. Is there a Nobro, North Broad Ripple? I don't know. But that area is called Sobro, which I think is so funny. And people that are like in their 20s are always like, if I'm like, where do you live? And they're like, Sobro. And I'm like, that sounds so pretentious. Like, it just really, like, you literally live like, Broad Ripple is cute anyway, right? So if somebody just said, like, I live in Broad Ripple, like, it's a really cute area. Or Meridian Kessler is right there. Or like, by Butler University is called Arden. Like, my mom always wanted to live in Arden. It's these little houses, these little, like, Cape Cods, and these little, like, brick deals that are adorable. And they have built-in, you know, like, window seats and, like, 5 fireplaces in the entire house. And the whole house is, like, 1,000 square feet. And they literally run for, like, $1.5 million. They're adorable, okay? But they're, like, where professors live at Butler and things like that. So, anyway, but isn't that so funny? That area is called Sobro. Okay, my battery is flashing, so I'm gonna get off here now, and I'm gonna go look at some of the Christmas lights. Those are so pretty up there. Oh, you can't see it. All right, and I'm gonna finish my audiobook, and then I don't know what I'm gonna read next, so it'll be a mystery. You'll have to come back tomorrow night and find out. And I love you guys so much. Go watch Murder on Middle Beach on HBO Max if you have it. If you don't, then I don't know, maybe they'll release it on Netflix at some point. And you can read about the article in the news. There's a bunch of articles, I'm sure, written about it. And it's the Barbara Hamburg case. And I love you guys so much. Nobody else has told you this today. I love you. Practice random acts of kindness, but don't, like I also always say, practice random acts of kindness, but don't tell anyone. Most importantly, make sure that you reach out to somebody and let them know how much they mean to you. Do something today that will make you happy and make you excited to have something fun today to do, like watch a movie or a documentary. And also do something today that will make you proud when you look back on it. And like I just said, if nobody else has told you this today, I love you. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. How many times do you need to hear I love you? One more I love you. Bye. Love you. You knew you were gonna get one more since I sang at the end, right? So I have to say, because I love you all, one more I love you. Yes, this is a reprise. This is an encore. I love you. One more I love you. Bye, love you. Bye, love you. Bye, love you. Bye. Love you.